Hi there, how are you doing? I hope you've had a good couple of weeks. Mine have been great with lots of fun things going on. Firstly, I would like to start by saying commiserations to Wycombe Wanderers after their League Two playoff defeat by Southend United at Wembley Stadium. I used to see them play regularly as a kid, and I've seen them win twice before at the old Wembley Stadium when they won their two previous FA Trophy finals there, back in the days when they were still a non-league team. My parents and sister went to the big game this year, but as I was away, I watched it in a pub up north. It was not so much the fact that they lost, but the way they lost, which made me feel sorry for them. Southend United equalised with just 21 seconds of the game left, and then went on to win on penalties, which was heartbreaking for the Buckinghamshire side. That said, well done to the manager Gareth Ainsworth and his players for a great season, and good luck to them for next year. I couldn't go to Wembley as I was up in Liverpool celebrating the end of the Premier League season and seeing my friend Jeff Nolan for the weekend. I travelled up on the Saturday so that I was fresh and ready for the showpiece occasion of the trip, which was a visit to Goodison Park to see Everton play my team Spurs on the Sunday. After a nice meal and a catch-up on the Saturday, we had a fairly early night so that we would be fully prepared for the game day itself. There was a big group of us going to the match, so we met up in the pub for a few pre-game drinks before heading to the ground. It was fun to catch up with everyone, and as I was the only Tottenham fan with so many Evertonians around, it's fair to say that there was plenty of banter flying about. The match itself was a pretty typical end-of-season affair, with both teams' minds possibly more on their summer holidays than on the pitch. But Spurs won thanks to a great header from Harry Kane. I was sitting right behind the goal where he scored, so it was nice to be able to witness his final strike of what has been a pretty successful personal domestic season for him. I think it's the first time that I've seen Spurs win there for quite a while, so that was nice. I did manage to have the traditional pint of chag at half-time with Jeff inside the ground, and after the game we visited a couple of the Everton pubs right near the ground before heading out into the centre of Liverpool. Once in the city, we visited many of our usual and favourite haunts, including the Cavern pub, where there was of course a guitarist-stroke-singer on stage performing Beatles songs. We ended up in the Tube, which is a really great 80s bar that I have easily been visiting now for around the last 10 years. In fact, I still have a keyring somewhere from the first time I went there. So I basically ended the night dancing very badly to some big disco and classic party hits from the decade that gave us the Rubik's Cube. It was a great day out, filled with football fun and music, a perfect day as far as I'm concerned. Before I left Liverpool, I did pay a very quick visit to the banks of the Mersey. The reason being that while I was there, Cunard, the cruise ship company, were celebrating their 175th anniversary by sailing the three biggest ships in their fleet up Liverpool's most famous river, led by the Queen Mary 2, which is an absolute beast of a boat. It's like an actual floating city. It was totally heaving with people as the ships arrived into view. I managed just to get a very quick look at them before I had to dash off and get my train home. The other week I fulfilled one of my lifetime ambitions and got to see one of the actual Beatles perform a full live show. It was always a dream of mine to see Paul McCartney play live, which I briefly achieved when I saw him perform two songs with Bruce Springsteen during the Boss's encore at a gig in Hyde Park a few years ago. But I always really wanted to see one of his own solo shows. So when I heard that Sir Paul was bringing his Out There tour to the United Kingdom, I decided that I just had to see it. I was thinking of getting tickets to see him in London at the O2, but then I spoke to my mate Jeff Nolan and found out he had a ticket to see him at the Barclaycard Arena in Birmingham. So I decided that if I could get a ticket, I would join him there. I did manage to get hold of one, so we decided to make a big night of it. We booked a room at the Ibis Budget Hotel, which to be fair, did exactly what it said on the tin. It was cheap and cheerful, but it did fulfill our needs, and the staff there were really nice and friendly. They even let us order pizza to our room in the early hours of the morning. Now, because Jeff and I had been getting so excited about the gig pretty much since we had booked the tickets, we were keeping a close eye on the set list that he was performing on each night of the tour. So even before we arrived at the venue, we knew we were going to be in for a real treat with all the big songs from pretty much every single stage of the singer's career likely to feature. As soon as we arrived at the arena, the atmosphere was fantastic, and you could feel the energy and the anticipation from the people there. It was the first time I had been there, and I was very impressed with the view that I had when I took my seat. He had a DJ who came on and did about a 20-minute warm-up set on stage. Then before the man at the moment came on, they played in the video with an accompanying soundtrack from the man himself charting his whole life and career. Then the lights went out, the tension built, and when they came back on, the band was in place and out walked Sir Paul McCartney to launch into an amazing version of 8 Days a Week. Then followed around 3 hours of hit after hit, performed so perfectly by Paul and his own excellent hand-picked band. He did change his guitars a lot, at one point joking that the reason he was changing them so often was that he had so many and just wanted to show them off, before pointing out that the one he had just picked up was the actual one he played on the recording of Paperback Writer, before launching straight into that song. The whole show was just out of this world, but some of the highlights for me included the pyrotechnics during Live and Let Die, the huge sing-along that was Hey Jude, the stripped-down guitar-only version of Yesterday, and a fabulous version of Band on the Run. Paul himself was just so chilled, relaxed and at ease on the stage, moving effortlessly between playing lead guitar, bass guitar and the keyboards. He sounded great and did not miss a single note all night. Finally, for a gentleman who is now 72 years old, he looks great and seemed to have the energy of a teenager. I'm so pleased I went. It was a memorable gig and night. Everybody leaving the Barclaycard Arena that night did so with a large smile on their face. Thank you very much, Sir Paul McCartney. I returned to the Museum of Comedy a couple of weeks ago to see the brilliant Josh Widdicombe perform a work-in-progress gig in preparation for his new UK tour, which starts in September. It's a lovely little venue where a lot of very well-known performers do like to try out new material in front of audiences of around 50 people. I sat in the front row. Having seen Josh before, I did not recall him talking to the audience, so I figured I would be safe and get a great view of him in action. My genius plan was then slightly ruined when he asked a question. I responded, which led to a little light-hearted interaction between us and me being the butt of a few of his jokes, which, by the way, is perfectly fine. I like to give it out, so therefore it's only fair and right that I can take it too. And it's only comedy, it's just for laughs, it's not malicious. To be fair, when he did refer back to me with another joke later in the show, he was almost apologising as he said it. He was, as ever, really funny and clever with his jokes, and in the way he's beginning to knit that show together, so when it goes out on tour, it will flow brilliantly, ending with a big finish which will nicely tie up the whole performance. I always like looking behind the showbiz of a celebrity and the fact that it is not always as glamorous and as exciting as people think. Josh arrived at the place by himself, introduced himself onto the stage, then at the end of the evening I saw him leave by himself, then nip into the local newsagents to grab a quick water before heading off to his next gig alone. It's not always rock and roll. If you have got tickets to see his show later this year, by the way, you are in for a treat. It's going to be great. The last act I saw at the Museum of Comedy was Trevor Noah. I have since worked out why he popped in to do a secret set. He was testing jokes and just running through his performance, ready for his appearance on the new John Bishop show, which I'm guessing was filmed the same week that I saw him, and which was on television last Saturday night. He was, as ever, brilliant on that too. Such a funny and clever bloke. In a couple of years' time, he could well be one of the biggest stars in the world. I do have to confess that I did watch the final of Britain's Got Talent. If you remember, I did actually go and see one of the audition shows being filmed at the Dominion Theatre in London. None of the many acts I witnessed on that day, though, had made it through to the final. For me, the best thing about the show is still Ant and Dec. I think they are brilliant, and they are what makes it for me. To be fair, I do go along with the opinion that the standard in this year's final was pretty high, and that there were some good and entertaining acts. Statistically, though, it would seem that you either need to be a singer, a dancer, or a dog to be in with a chance of winning. Personally, I wanted the magician to win. I thought his tricks were good, he was amusing, and he seemed like a nice bloke who had served his showbiz apprenticeship. Plus, it would have been the first time a non-singing or dancing person or animal had won the title. I didn't dislike the dog act and thought it was clever and well done, but that is the second time in 3 years a dog has won the competition, which surely must make some people who are possibly thinking about auditioning think, well, why bother? If there's a talented pet there, I'll have no chance. And for all the people moaning about a stunt double dog being used, it was a dog that had already featured in the semi-final appearance. So we had already seen it before, and in effect we voted for it as well to get to the final. And it still did the trick with the ladder itself. Lastly on the subject, nobody complains when actors don't perform their own stunts in films. The dog, of course, deserved to win simply because that was the act that had the most votes. One thing is for sure though, if you are a comedian or an impressionist, there is no way you're ever going to win that competition, it would seem. I noticed that they are already looking for people to apply for next year's show, so we can be totally sure it will be back next spring. As long as the two Geordies are still fronting it, I will still be watching it. I spent another lovely evening at Windsor Races the other Monday. I went with my parents as part of my dad's birthday celebrations. He is almost getting as bad as me for organising lots of different events to celebrate. The weather was not very summery, with rain and quite strong winds, but it didn't spoil any of the enjoyment. After doing so well when I was there previously, this time around I only managed to select one winner. But the feeling you get during that one quick moment where your chosen horse crosses the finish line first is worth the trip alone. Whenever I'm cheering a horse home in a tight finish, I always seem to turn into Julia Roberts in that scene from Pretty Woman when she's at the polo. So we are talking lots of screaming and fist pumping. I do really like horse racing and I would love to own my own racehorse one day. My mum did have quite a successful evening picking a few winners. I'm now hoping this does not lead to her developing a big gambling problem. Ultimately, it was just a fun night out with the family, which is something you can never have enough of, in my opinion. Have fun, and we'll catch up again in a couple of weeks. Cheers!